The Mother franchise is well known in the modern gaming community as something of a cult classic and an oddball RPG that came out of a company known for adhering to formulas and tradition. And, of course, there's the frustration with Nintendo for not translating Mother 3. Aside from these facts, though, there's quite a lot of history behind the franchise that's not so well known. Today, I wanted to talk about what it is that makes this franchise so unique and so odd from Nintendo's traditional game production strategy. Mother, as it was known in the United States, or Earthbound Beginnings as it was known in Japan, was released in Japan in July 1989 for the Famicom at a starting price of 6,500 yen. It was developed by Ape and published by Nintendo. The story followed the character of Ninten, the protagonist, who has psychic powers, as he collects 8 melodies in order to prevent an alien race from using mind control to take over the people of Earth. The gameplay is mainly divided between 2 sections, the overworld and the battle screen. So the player encounters random enemies in the overworld, and in the battle screen, players can select to battle against an enemy using a number of commands. Earthbound Beginnings was directed and designed by Shigesato Itoi and produced by Shigeru Miyamoto of Nintendo. Shigesato was a well-known Japanese copywriter and television personality, and he actually produced and designed the idea behind Earthbound Beginnings. He wanted to create a game that Nintendo could not make, something different compared to the formula that games like Zelda followed at the time. There are many sources of inspiration for Shigesato when creating Earthbound Beginnings. The game was inspired by John Lennon's song Mother, with which Shigesato heavily related due to not having a father in his life when he grew up. Shigesato also thought that the game would be considered more feminine compared to other RPGs like Dragon Quest, and so he thought the name Mother would be fitting. Initially, Miyamoto rejected Shigesato's idea when he presented it to Nintendo. Miyamoto liked the idea, but he didn't want to risk investing in another celebrity-made Famicom game, which had become a trend at the time that often led to failure. Shigesato actually cried on the train ride home due to not being used to being rejected in the film and acting world, where he was used to hearing, "Now we can do this," instead of, "There's no way we can do this realistically." But later, Miyamoto called and asked to continue the proposal, believing that Shigesato might be onto something. Mother 1 and 2 was released as a combo package for the Game Boy Advance in Japan in 2003, presumably to try and market for Mother 3. Mother itself was not released on its own in North America as Earthbound Beginnings until June 2015 on the Virtual Console. There were numerous examples of censorship and changes for the North American version, considering Nintendo of America's strict regulation of games in regards to offense caused by religion, sex, and drugs. The difficulty levels lowered, examples of copyright infringement issues were taken out, and graphics were changed to not cause offense. For example, the crows in the game no longer hold cigarettes, and crosses were removed from the game. Names of locations like towns were changed, like Santa Claus Station to Union Station. In addition, a running mechanic was added. Holding B allows players to run. However, this actually makes the overworld actually run twice as fast. Mother 2 Gygus Strikes Back, or Earthbound, was the second installment in the Mother series. It was released in Japan in August 1994 for the Super NES, and in North America in June 1995. This time, the game was still designed by Shigesato Itoi and developed by Ape, as well as HAL Laboratories, and published through Nintendo. It was developed by a different team than the original Mother game, and having taken 5 years to develop, the game came under repeated threat of cancellation. This time, the story follows the main character of Ness, who is searching for 8 melodies using his psychic abilities to prevent the world from being taken over by an alien race and falling into darkness. The gameplay still uses a battle and overworld split. Unlike Mother, however, the overworld is entirely seamless instead of using bit-by-bit loading screens. The game also uses oblique design instead of isometric or top-down design for the overworld. Mother 2 took over 5 years of development as the team ran into many issues while programming the game. For example, programming the oblique view is very difficult, as well as things like programming the bicycle and delivery man, because they had to be able to navigate the map and understand concepts like walls and other obstructions. In the last 2 months, a slot machine feature was even added to the game. The backgrounds, which Shigesato himself refers to as a video drug often in Japanese, took over 2 years for a single artist to create. The game also had problems with graphic scenes. While the game was initially rated E for everyone, it was later changed due to the generally mature humor of the game as well as the darker parts of the story. The greatest example of this may come from the ending scene, in which some of the dialogue during the final battle with Gygas was based off of a graphic and traumatizing sexual assault scene Shigesato saw as a child by accident in a movie theater while watching the film The Military Policeman and the Dismembered Beauty. Mother 2 also includes unique copy protection. The game continuously checks for the cartridge being unauthorized, and if it is, the game starts to spawn a higher amount of enemies than normal. If the player actually manages to get to the end of the game will freeze during the fight with Gygas and clear the cartridge of all saves in a pretty evil twist. As for the sales of Mother 2, the game initially sold poorly in America due to a lack of appreciation for the JRPG genre. The game had an odd marketing campaign that proclaimed, "This game stinks," in order to market a scratch and sniff card that sold alongside it, which may have affected the perception of consumers before choosing to buy the game. Mother 2 sold well in Japan but poorly in North America. However, it eventually became a cult classic in America and even climbed to number 1 on the Nintendo Weekly ranking of Most Wanted Virtual Console Game in 2008. The final installment of the series, Mother 3, was released in 2006 for the Game Boy Advance in Japan. It was developed by Nintendo, Brownie Brown, and HAL Laboratory. This time, the game follows the story of Lucas, who journeys to the Nowhere Islands and must save the island from an invading army and its leader. The gameplay itself is mechanically pretty similar to Mother 2. The team saw the plotline and the oddness of the story to be similar to The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask, which had been released during the development of Mother 3. What many may not know is that the Mother 3 game was originally going to be a 3D game, with the title Earthbound 64 for the Nintendo 64 and the Nintendo 64 disk drive, but development was cancelled in 1999 when the development team realized they didn't have enough experience or time to work on 3D graphics, as well as the failure of the disk drive. Eventually, with the release of the 2D Mother 3 games in Japan, it came as a shock to many to discover that Mother 3 would not receive an overseas release. The game had sold over 200,000 copies in its first 3 days of release in Japan, so why wouldn't they release another version for English speakers? In 2006, NintendoWorldReport.com interviewed Nate Bildorf, the head of localization at Nintendo of America. Bildorf stated that they did not have plans to localize Mother 3 due to the significant effort involved in localizing a game with language and culture-specific humor and references. As of 2009, a fan translation patch was created that translates the entire game into English. Thank you very much for watching my analysis of the Mother franchise development process. If you have any opinions or comments, please comment them down below. Thank you.